Hi gang, Rob here. It's the evening of 22 October 2015 and welcome to the full initial review of the Lionsteel TM1. This is the Charlie Bravo version, carbon fiber with black blade. I imagine in Italy they wouldn't say Charlie Bravo, but you're in America now, boys. So let's take a look at what we got. This is kind of an interesting knife. If you think you're seeing double tonight, this won't be the only day this month you feel like that. You're going to notice a shorter video of the same knife, a product overview for collectorknives.net. This one will be a little more in-depth than that. So the TM1, a relatively new knife in Lionsteel's stable, and I believe it was developed pretty much for law enforcement personnel. So although it is a pocket clippable folder, if you want to carry it on the belt, if you're an officer for instance, and you got a duty belt that might be, oh, I don't know, 3 inches wide or so, you can do that. And the sheath is extremely well made. You know, you'd be thinking utility, wouldn't you? You know, black handle, black blade, kind of a stubby little work knife. Just what an officer needs to get through his shift. But we're not going to put it in a ballistic nylon sheath. We're going to use a top grain leather, top stitched sheath, riveted belt loop, first class antique bronze snap. The Italians are awesome, aren't they? Oh, and by the way, we're not going to make the handle out of G10. We're going to do a milled for texture 3D contoured carbon fiber. You gotta love it. So what is it we're looking at here, guys? Well, it's kind of interesting. We have a 3 7/16 inch blade, flat ground with just a tiny flat at the top. So, I don't know. We'll say 80% of its height, flat ground from 4.5 millimeters or about 175 thousandths stock, comes to a pretty thin dimension behind the edge. A superb slasher, thick enough to pry with once you get up onto the flats. Great duty blade, I believe, and it's in a fairly compact package. 3 7/16 blade with lots of cutting edge and cutting capability, a 4.5 inch handle. The blade's made of Sleipner steel, which we sort of have characterized as we've gotten to know it as a steel that performs a lot like D2 with much better corrosion protection. So capable of taking a super fine edge, much better than average edge holding. In fact, pretty outstanding edge holding. Adequate toughness, and it will not rust. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Not horrible to sharpen either. And the handle is this gorgeous monolithic or integral, or as Lionsteel says, it is their solid construction. So this is one piece of carbon fiber. So this back half of the knife is all one piece, and then it's milled out and made into a conventional lockback. Sort of conventional, and we'll get to that. The designer of this knife, Moletta, our buddy of SR fame. What is that? You see that logo next to Lionsteel? That looks like a ball bearing pivot logo, but that can't be. It's a lockback, right? What the heck? Oh, or perhaps it could be. Well, it actually squirts out of there pretty good if you know how to do it. There we go. Did you hear that? That's like the next best thing to racking a 12 gauge, isn't it? Wow. But yes, it is on caged ball bearings. I don't know if you can see them in there. Interesting combination, and I'll get to why I think they did that as we go. And here's something for you, Toad Sticker. I just saw your review of the Cold Steel Ultimate Hunter, and you know, you were dissing my Triad lock because of the tiny little flat spring that broke in your Code 4. But what if you made out a big round spring stock and you put two of them in there? How about that? So if one did happen to fracture, you'd still have one. Cool. This is one slick operating lockback knife, guys. It's fun. Deployment is via this thumb plate, and I will tell you, you saw me misfire once. You do have to get to know it. Your hand has to be sort of forward, and you really have to push straight forward with it and really utilize this sort of barely adequate jimping. It's there, it works. Your hand has to get used to the knife, I guess, would be the way I would describe it. Do you hear that? That's one of the best thwacks in the knife industry, I think. So here's what I think about this pivot. I think as I look at the bearing assemblies, they are too large in diameter for them to load like a cartridge through the side holes. So here's what I think is going on, and this is a brand new knife and it's not mine. I'm not taking it apart. I believe we have grooves milled in the carbon fiber frame only. Good luck doing that, but I don't. And then I think they insert the bearings into a channel with a little grease in there to hold it in, because I've definitely found some white fluorinated grease inside this knife. Then I think they slide the blade in and then insert the pivot, much like you would do with a Benchmade axis lock if you were reassembling it. And I think the reason they went to ball bearings in this knife is because their other integral frames, their solid series knives, the SRs and the tie spine with the Teflon washers, some of those knives, after milling, the stresses of machining make the knives close in this area right here. So with the pivot completely disassembled, you just put the female barrel through, the dimension and the width of that cavity is actually smaller than two washers and a blade. So the only way to get the blade and the washers back in if you disassemble it is to like drive a wedge down in there, and sometimes you tear up the washers and it's just a nightmare. Sometimes you just can never get the action right on those because they're so tight. Bearings alleviate that. Even if the frame is pressing on the bearings, it's still going to have free action. Of course, no blade play side to side, and although the lockback is a conventional one, we get a pretty good rise out of that spring. The tooth cavity is pretty deep. I don't know how well you can see that. Very finely machined blade tang, or ground I guess, in the front of the lock bar. So you get really positive lockup. Do you love the shape of that blade? It's like a modified drop point. So the front of the blade almost looks like a Benchmade 950 Rift. It's like a modified drop point reverse tanto kind of thing going on. Very effective. Gives you a nice forward tip for piercing. Man, they did a good job sharpening this blade at the factory. Do you believe that? A Lionsteel? Woo! With a screaming edge on it? Are you kidding me? That's pretty good, guys. Of course, it's not symmetrical and it's a little toothy and all that, but it's a good factory edge. I mean, this is right up here with, that's right up there with the Spyderco or Kershaw edge. Kershaw back in the old days when they made nice thin sharp knives. This is pretty cool. It doesn't make sense, does it? A conventional lockback in 2015 for north of $300 without anything super exotic except its integral construction. I mean, it's beautiful, and carbon fiber is strong. You can't squeeze it and flex it. But I did detect as I was flying over the handle, there are some voids. That sunburst pattern of texture and milling kind of hides it, but they are there. course, doing this kind of machining to carbon fiber, I would imagine that's going to reveal itself. Not much you can do. It's a very nice texture, very good grip. But you know, you gotta love this thing to buy one, I think, because they are not cheap. They do make a canvas micarta version that's over $100 less. That's how proud of this carbon fiber they are. Makes some beautiful noises. Does this remind you guys of anything? Let's see here. I just happen to have another knife that makes a pretty good thwack. Huh. That's a Cold Steel American Lawman. And dimensionally, here's the deal. The handle on the Lawman is just a little bit longer. The blade is a little longer on the TM1. You got 4.5 millimeter stock on the TM1, 3.5 millimeter stock on the Lawman. Both of them are unlined. This one in G10, this one in carbon fiber. Instead of being integral, the Lawman has an aluminum backspacer, sort of conventional assembly and construction. But they sure do look a lot the same, don't they? I mean, clearly a similar philosophy of use, very similar blades. The profile of that cutting edge couldn't be more similar. You know, the difference in ergonomics is the Lawman does give you a forward choil. Frankly, boy, they wouldn't have had to make that much longer to accomplish that. I'd kind of like it if they did, but they didn't. But that's kind of funny, isn't it? Those blades look awfully similar. You know, this one's just 8 times as much as this one. I mean, only the Italians would do that, right? We want to make a knife to compete with the American Lawman. We will make it from carbon fiber. People will pay us way too much. We'll put some very cool milling in the handle and a glass breaker on the end of the pocket clip. We'll put some Sleipner steel maleta. You draw this for us. We will sell them for 8 times as much as the Lawman. We'll all be rich. Yeah. Hey, I'm not arguing with them. It is a very cool knife. Interesting ergos, and excellent ergos, by the way. In our saber grip, thrusting grip, we do have like one little tooth of jimping right behind the thumb plate. Or I guess, right behind the thumb plate. Sort of ramps up to the back of the thumb plate. But there's this little divot here. So the fat of your thumb sits in that little divot, and it just perfectly digs on that lip. I mean, minimalist, absolutely, but perfectly functional, and it's comfortable. That grip is amazing. The overhand pinch grip that we like to call the One All's Pub Samurai grip is excellent. The hammer grip is excellent. The draw cut grip they're all unbelievable, guys. Even the reverse grip, it's a beautiful handle, beautifully made. You know, if you like the looks of the SR1's handle, but you thought it was a little slick and hard to hold on to for a tactical knife, this is better. I mean, it has some of the same lines as the SR handle, but this satin and textured carbon fiber just gives you this nice grippiness that you don't have on that hard anodized aluminum. You know, I look at this knife through the viewfinder in my hand, and I keep reaching for a frame lock release because I know what it is, I know where it came from, and I just expect it to be a frame lock, but it ain't. Oh. This is kind of interesting at the back. We have this clip that we love, this Lionsteel clip. Super simple, reversible, left or right, tip up. And remember, guys, we've got nothing but carbon fiber back here. So let's see if I can show you. Under the clip, you'll see the end, there it is, of a female pivot barrel. which goes through the threaded stud, which is probably also female, that holds this clip screw on. So the barrel goes through the stud, the screw holds the barrel in, and then the clip goes on, and then we screw into that stud. Simple, elegant, awesome. Did I mention what a great noise it makes? Can you hear it? Does that coming through? Because it's awesome. You know, that's like a Winchester Model 12 quality noise there. Is this, you know, $330 worth of knife? Oof. I don't know. Would I sure love it if somebody gave me one for Christmas? You betcha. Of course, I'd want it to be the satin blade in the carbon fiber handle. And it does come 4 ways. Black micarta black blade, black micarta satin blade, and then carbon fiber black, carbon fiber satin. I want to meet this guy, Moletta. Michel Pensato. I want to meet him. He sure knows what a knife ought to look like. Man, guys, this thing is built. Kind of goofy, some things that don't make sense, but it's Italian, we expect that. Oh. That is all for this one. I have this enthusiasm for this knife that doesn't make sense. You'll have that sometimes. I had a commenter on my Lionsteel TRE video that I did for Mike at Collector Knives that thought it sounded like an infomercial, and he missed my stream of consciousness style. Well, you got it on this one, whether you want it or not. That is it for tonight, guys. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word and Moletta's TM1 are sharp.